Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, geeks and nerds and ambassadors and cinema fans everywhere, and welcome back to the Ambassador Wing, and a very Merry Christmas to one and all on this fine Wednesday evening. Hope y'all are having a great week. We have reached the middle of the week. It is Hump Day. And tonight we are back and we are starting a brand new batch of Christmas movie reviews. And tonight we are going back to one of my favorite decades for cinema, one of my favorite decades for film, a decade that I grew up in. We are going back to the 80s, and we are going to be reviewing a personal favorite, regardless of the time of year. We'll be talking about the classic by Mr. Joe Dante and Mr. Steven Spielbergs, Gremlins. And of course, if this is your first visit to the Ambassador Wing, welcome one and all. Hope y'all enjoy the stream, whether you're watching this live, whether you catch us on the replay, it does not matter. Hope y'all enjoy the stream. And as always, make sure you smash that like button. Share this out with all your friends who are fans of great cinema, great movies, and who like to have good conversation, like to have pleasant conversation, not a bunch of clickbaity crap, just good movie commentary. And as I often do, and I will do that here in just a minute, I am going to drop the link in the chat for any of you that are tuned in live, whether you're watching on Twitch, whether you're watching on YouTube, or whether you're watching on Twitter. And if you would like to join me this evening for this stream, if you want to talk all things Gremlins, the link will be in the chat here in just a moment. So, so get on in here and let's talk Gremlins. And I do want to say hello to a good friend of the channel, a fellow ambassador in his own right, Mr. MB Geeks Bar and Grill, or simply NB Geek. Welcome, my friend. Good to see you. So, but yes, this is a film I absolutely love. This film has a lot of fond memories for me, some bittersweet memories for me, for those of you who know my personal history and everything. This was, in fact, the last film that me and Mother and Father Ambassador saw as a family before Father Ambassador passed away back in 1984. But tonight, we're not talking sad things. We are talking happy things. We're talking about a great film. This was a wonderful film, and I'll share some of my own personal history of this, anything aside from what I've already mentioned. One of my fondest memories, everything, and this does involve Mother and Father Ambassador and everything. We actually went to see this, I think, opening week or weekend. I can't remember. It's 1984. That's a ways back. But this, we unfortunately went to the theater, but at the time we could not get into the show that we wanted to go to. So we went to, and I see you, bud. I will let you in just a minute. So, so we ended up going over to the local Dairy Queen, and yes, we were the type of people who ate ice cream in the middle of winter. But in this particular instance, 1, we were cold. 2, we were thirsty. And 3, me and Dad being, guys, sometimes it gets a little too cold and sometimes nature calls. So, we went over to the Dairy Queen that was not too far away and everything from the theater, used the facilities, got some hot chocolate, and got warmed up, and then we ventured back out. We got and everything and got in line, and we got our tickets to another showing for Gremlins. How does not eating ice cream matter? That is just crazy talk. Anyway, that being said, my little anecdote there. Well, I'll give a warm welcome to a longtime friend. He is an ambassador. You know him. You love him. I call him my friend because he is. Mr. MB Grandpa Geek.
How's it going, bud?
Hey, Geek. Good to see you, pal.
Oh, dude, I'm on cloud nine right now.
Well, I am glad. And I'm glad to
Yeah,
have you here with me tonight.
yeah. I got euphoria going. It's all great. Everything's good. Um,
I'm glad to hear that.
this
Truly.
movie was just.
Mm-hmm.
I'd show you, man. I love this movie so much. When you see
Mm-hmm.
my stuff from my retro toy store when I buy them. You
Mm-hmm.
saw my
Mm-hmm.
Gizmo. You saw, and I think I told you the story about when I was looking for Stripe,
Mm-hmm.
and they actually had Stripe, and I was like, boom, yeah, 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 yeah. Just, I'm done.
I've I remember I had some of the toys from this when this movie came out. I even had the stuffed gizmo that squeaked when you squeezed him. Mother
Oh, I
Ambassador
remember that.
Mother Ambassador, unless she got rid of it, and I don't think she did, she still has hers and it still squeaks.
Hope
Now,
so.
I'm gonna test your mental agility here. Do you remember a particular, now I don't know if you had it in your neck of the woods growing up, but did you have either Hardee's or Carl's Jr.?
Depending on where I was living, but yes, I had both. I've been to both.
Do okay. This was back in the 80s. This is right around the time when Gremlins came out, or was before Gremlins came out. Now, this involves a different member of my family. This was grandmother ambassador, and we would go to this is mom's mom, my maternal grandmother. We would go to church and everything, and this was at the time when mom was with dad and everything at the hospital and everything after he was recovering from his heart transplant surgery. And grandmother was taking care of me, and we would go to church every Sunday. And the agreement was, I behaved myself. If I didn't cause a lot of trouble in church, I rarely ever did. I sat there, listened to the pastor, yada yada yada. We would go next door and we would have lunch. Now we would still have lunch, but then she would always give me a little something extra. At the time, Hardee's was doing a promotion where they had the little booklets and the record of the movie. Do you remember those, Geek?
No, I don't think we had. No, I don't particularly remember those, but
Okay. No,
at
that's
the
all right.
time I was in, I believe at the time this movie came out, I was living in Florida, and
Okay.
we, uh, it was before I was in an area where my grandmother was always taking me to the movies, and my
Mhm.
parents, they were busting their ass to put food on the table. So going to
No,
the movies was not
was not on the
going to the
list of
movies and
things.
going to fast. For those people who don't realize, people like me and the ambassador,
Mhm.
back then when we were struggling, going out to eat was a treat.
That's true. Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, we weren't like squeezing things really, really tight in terms financially, but it was the same deal and everything. We would when we could afford it, we would do it and everything. But grandmother ambassador got me. It took a few weeks and everything or so, but we got all four books with all four records of the entire
nice.
run of Gremlins. And now here's the kicker: I don't have them. Mother
Were
Ambassador
they
does.
45s? What kind of LPs were they?
It was a smaller record, so I want to say yeah.
Yeah, I
It was a
remember. I remember when I don't remember what company, but it was
mhm.
promoting Alf, and I was like
I
so
remember. Yeah.
excited to get the
Hmm.
40. I believe it's 45, and I was so excited that I got that.
45
But
is a smaller record. Mhm.
I totally understand where you're going there. The experience was
But
so amazing.
mhm. I have to admit, like I said, this I have a bittersweet connection to this film because, like I mentioned, this was the last film we got to see together as family before Dad passed. But
Oh,
in spite, and no, no, you know, I'm not looking
No,
at
no, no.
this
I
as a,
understand.
but the crazy thing was, I didn't make it all the way through the movie. I fell asleep partway through, and I can't remember exactly when I fell asleep, but it was, I woke up right around the time when Billy and Kate and Gizmo were chasing Stripe into the department store there in his hometown in Kingston Falls. And I remember that entire sequence. And, the crazy thing was, even at 44 years old, I still can remember to this day the three of us sitting in the theater. Mom was on one side of me, dad was on the other. And my eyes were just glued to the screen. But it wouldn't be until years later.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Geek. No, you're fine.
No,
Go
no, no.
ahead, bud.
Sorry, you
It's
go
all right.
ahead. You go.
But it wouldn't be until years later when I would actually get to see the movie all the way through. It's the part that I missed. And I was like, now I remember why I love this movie so much. And, I have it on Blu-ray. I have, I found this a few years ago. It's a 3-pack. It's a Blu-ray 3-pack. Everything, same case. It's Goonies, Gremlins, and Gremlins 2, the new batch. And
Perfection.
I was like, yes, they had.
I would have said, if I had ever seen that, I would have snatched that up too. I have Goonies, I have Gremlins 1 and 2, but if I'd seen something like that, it would have been like, it was like, yeah, just take my money.
Here's my money, take it now. And it had been a while since I watched this. I try to watch it at least once around Christmas time, give or take, because now let me ask you the question, Geek. Gremlins, is it or is it not a Christmas movie? In your opinion?
Is my facial expression not giving you the answer? Frick, yes, it is. Frick, yes, it is a Christmas movie. How is that even a question?
Yeah, I know, but
I know, but I'm sorry.
Well, last year we debated the question during the watch along for Die Hard. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? And regardless of what Mr. Bruce Willis has to say, yes, Die Hard is a Christmas movie, as is Gremlins. Gremlins is a Christmas movie. It takes place during Christmas time. It is about family, and yes, it is partially frightening, but it's also cute.
The thing is, I'm going to be honest. I don't give a shit what Bruce Willis says about Die Hard. That movie has been for almost. When I saw it in theater, I did not get to see Gremlins in theater. My first experience with Gremlins was VHS.
Yeah. No.
For those of you who don't know what a VHS tape is, look it up. Google it.
It's the granddad of the DVD and the Blu-ray and the 4K disc. If it were not for VHS and Betamax, we would not have what we have nowadays. It would not even
you
exist.
And I, you know what? On just a slight segue, you and I are old enough to remember the VHS Betamax wars. So when Blu-ray and that DVD, whatever it was called, Plus came out, it was like, we're just gonna way back and see who wins this fucking thing. Pardon my language, but that's what I did because I remembered the Betamax wars with VHS.
I vaguely remember them, but it's been a while.
I vaguely remember them. Yeah, I vaguely remember them too, but we remembered them, and that's why I was so hesitant on. Okay, we got to DVD, and then it was DVD Plus, I think, and Blu-ray, and it was kind of like they weren't compatible with each other, and I just sat back and said, "I'll wait to see who wins," because I remembered how that went. But when it comes
in terms of the
Die
movie,
Hard, when it comes to like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, One, or Gremlins, yes, they are absolutely Christmas movies, and I don't care what anybody else says.
Yes, I wholeheartedly and most enthusiastically agree with you. But
I mean,
getting into the movie.
okay. Oh, okay. Here you go. There you go.
Lord, he always pulls
Sorry,
out
man.
something good.
I actually still have one out.
No, it's all right.
We're working on back here.
Oh, dude. Yes. Yes. I love it.
When they come in, oh God, we're getting way too ahead of ourselves. But yes,
yeah, because
when I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, I got to get this. But when I was looking for Gizmo, I found Gizmo, and I was like, I asked my toy store, I was like, do you ever get Stripe in? And they knew exactly what I was talking about. They go, yeah, but every time we get him in, he's, almost gone within a day. So when I came in one day and I saw him down there, I just grabbed him. I didn't even look at the rest of the place. I was like, yep, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah. Well, getting into the movie itself, I mean, obviously this was a Steven Spielberg Presents feature directed by Joe Dante, great director himself. I mean, he's done a lot of creature features throughout his career. Written by Chris Columbus, who has done a lot of really good work throughout his career, but a really top-notch cast. I mean, you've got Hoyt Axton as Randall Peltzer. You've got Zach Galligan as Billy Peltzer. Let's see, where is he?
I'm gonna go Geologia real quick while you're talking.
Okay,
you're explaining. I'll be right back.
You're fine. You've got Phoebe Cates as Kate, the love interest. You've got Polly Holiday as Mrs. Deagle. Deagle. Hate that woman. You've got, let's see, who else have we got here? You actually have a cameo, and I don't know if you can hear me, Geek. You've got a cameo by the great animator Chuck Jones as Mr. Jones, as himself, essentially. He's the one that everything that's sitting next to Billy in the bar and everything when Billy's drawn that sketch of Mrs. Deagle as a dragon. And Mr. Jones says, the old bats never looked better. And man, a woman that you love to hate, Mrs. Deagle. Just an absolutely detestable, rotten, lousy, stinking old biddy. And yes, I use those words deliberately. But here is some fun facts about the voices of the Gremlins themselves. For those of you who may not know this, 3 prominent voice actors and 1 live action actor did the voices for Stripe, for Gizmo, and for the Gremlins themselves. 2 of which me and Geek have a and here's the thing, full disclosure, full transparency. I did not know this until I watched the credits the other night when I was watching this. Now, most everybody knows Howie Mandel does the voice of Gizmo, but here's what I did not know. Frank Welker and Peter Cullen did the voice of both the Mogwais, and Frank Welker did the voice of Stripe. And of course, for those of you who are kids of the 80s,
I really need to look at the credits now because I did not know that. Okay, basically,
I've got my IMDb. I've got IMDb pulled up. But of course, you've got.
If you don't mind, explain who those 2 are and why they're iconic.
Well, Frank Welker and Peter Cullen, of course, are more well known as the voices of Optimus Prime and Cobra Commander / Starscream from Transformers and G.I. Joe.
I did not know that. I actually did not know that.
Like I said, until I.
Oh my God. Like I said, mind now is blown.
Mind blown.
Thank you. I did not know that.
And of course, you've got Jackie Joseph as Sheila Futterman, Mr. Futterman's wife. I'm trying to find Mr. Futterman himself. Where are you, old boy?
Oh, that.
Oh, Dick Miller. That's the name of the actor. Dick Miller plays Mr. Futterman. Harry Carey Jr.'s in this as Mr. Anderson. I think Anderson is the bank manager, if I remember correctly.
That sounds. I think that was right.
Now,
Back then I didn't really, I really am bad at those older movies we watched, learning all the actors and the voice actors. I didn't really get into an appreciation for voice actors until Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah, I mean, you're not the only one. I mean, I know we discussed this a few nights ago with the passing of Kevin Conroy and everything. But this when I saw those credits rolling through, and can you talk about a more iconic piece of music as the Gremlins theme that they play? They start to build it up slowly through the movie. It's more orchestral, and then when Mr. Futterman's bulldozer plows through the side of the living.
There's a gremlin in my house.
There's a gremlin in my tractor, and that absolutely manic piece of music starts playing. Can you talk about a more iconic piece of music from a film? Absolutely, positively one of the.
I didn't. Oh, I'm sorry. You actually hit on something I've only recently.
I couldn't.
But you actually have hit on something that I didn't realize I needed to focus on until the last about 5 or 6 years. The scores, the tension build.
Yeah.
I mean, we all know the Jaws, we know the Star Wars, we know John Williams, but I'm like, yeah, exactly what you're saying. It's like, if it's not the scores, it does not, the movie would be lacking. So, yes, I totally understand. I didn't realize and appreciate how great those kind of scores could be until recently. And I'm like, oh my God, the more I focus on it, I'm like, oh my God, this just makes the movie even better if it's a good movie. So, yes, I totally understand where you're coming from there.
Well, and here's a fun little fact. Jerry Goldsmith did the music for Gremlins. Here's another interesting little fun fact. Steven Spielberg has an uncredited appearance as a man in an electric wheelchair in Gremlins.
And one time I remember anybody in a chair was the one who went out the window. Was the old biddy who went out the window.
Oh, no. Oh, Mrs. Deagle, played by Polly Holiday, was the name of the actress. A more mean, cantankerous, just vile old woman.
An old bitter woman that just was made completely for you to despise. And it was literally like she was the one character. Fetterman, you could sympathize with a little bit.
Fetterman was a good.
Yeah, Fetterman was a good guy. No, I'm saying, but you could understand his, that curmudgeon attitude. But it was like you were rooting for the villain. You were rooting for the Gremlins. You were rooting
when the Gremlins break into the house and you see that Gremlin monkeying around with her lift chair, and you're like, oh, goody. The old biddy's about to buy it. Fun little.
I'm not ready. Ah! It's like, yes! You're like, yes, this is a one time I'm rooting for the Gremlins.
Well, and to quote a favorite movie of both yours and mine, at least I believe so, and there was indeed much rejoicing. Yay. I will say this, in the years when it came out on TV and when we got it on VHS and so on, anytime it was on TV, me and mom and grandmother, we would all watch it. And even grandmother would be like, when is that old biddy going to get launched out the window? She's like, that's the part I want to see.
What?
Yes,
Wait a
my
minute.
grand.
Wait a minute. What? Oh, okay. I'm gonna do the 10th Doctor here. What? What? What?
Grandmother did not like mean old ladies, even though she herself was old, but she was not mean.
That's so funny. Context here to why I say that. My grandmother was an old person, was an old biddy. But when we were driving, when we'd go anywhere, I swear to God, she hated old people driving. She's like, get out of the way, old people. Get out of the way, old woman. Get out of the way, old man. I mean, she could not stand people going slow. She's like, she was just
put your foot on the
lose it in the car.
You know what my grandma would be like, put your foot on the damn gas and go.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
But
I remember my grandma saying, the gas pedal's on the right, motherfucker.
Grandmother never used curse words like that. She was just, but getting back to the movie. This movie starts off as very, you start off with Randall Peltzer. The narration. And Hoyt Axton has such a distinctive voice and such a distinctive way of speaking. And his, the structure of this film is actually, I think, really, really good because it's bookended by Randall or Hoyt Axton's narration at the beginning and then at the end. And it's like you're being transported to a different time, really. I mean, okay, obviously this movie does take place in the 1980s because a lot of the vehicles and the clothing styles is very 80s-esque.
Yes.
I mean, but for heaven's sakes, Kingston Falls, if you think about it, is almost modeled or mirrors the town. Yeah, the town from It's a Wonderful Life.
Okay, so more 30s, 40s era.
But somewhat modernized and everything in a way, if you follow me.
No, I understand where you're going there.
But it's Steven Spielberg and Joe Dante, and they're like, okay, we're going to do a Christmas movie, but a Christmas movie with monsters. And that's kind of what Joe Dante has become known for. He's done a lot of creature features throughout his career because he did this one, he did the second Gremlins, he did Jurassic Park 3, and he's done a bunch of other stuff too. I think let me see if I can't pull up his IMDb. I'm pretty sure I can. Just takes a second.
I remember I remember being blown away by the difference between Gizmo and when the Gremlins ate after midnight. I just remember being blown away by that.
Okay. He did Inner Space, he did Gremlins, he did Small Soldiers, he did The Howling. Let's see. What else did he do?
Oh, Inner Space. Wow, that's a variety. Inner Space and The Howling.
Mm-hmm.
That's ranged a little bit because both were very good.
Yeah, they were.
And so can we just agree on this? Practical effects are the way. I don't mind CGI. I like CGI. I know it is, but my God, practical effects. You look at our older movies; they really stand the test of time with practical effects.
They do.
The puppeteering.
I absolutely agree. I mean,
the puppeteering.
The puppeteering was so good. Yeah. For Gizmo and for the other Mogwais. Now, there's one thing and we'll come back to the practical effects in a minute. Mr. Keeley as Grandpa, a very warm and endearing yet menacing individual, even though he's an old man. And I love that junk shop, that old. Okay, I don't think it's being discriminatory or anything to say this old Chinese junk shop. But and when Randall walks in there, he's trying. Yeah, and he's pitching the bathroom buddy because Randall Peltzer Ran is an inventor. He's just kind of a haphazard inventor, unfortunately.
And I'm sorry, but I gotta say, and that goes through the movie that his inventions. Here's the thing: he had great concepts as an inventor, but he didn't have the ability or the finances to, see this through. But a couple times they worked out for them.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. There's one scene in particular when he's at the inventors convention, and they have a couple of old school or what I would call ultra retro pop culture icons. I don't know if you remember this or not. When he's on the telephone talking to the wife, and you see none other than Robbie the robot.
Yes, I remember that. Oh God,
but not only that, in the background,
and remember, Robbie also showed up in Lost in Space.
Was that the same model robot? I thought it was a different one.
It was Robbie the robot.
Was it? Okay.
Space. Yes.
Okay.
But Forbidden Planet, absolutely, it is freaking one of my favorite.
I'm gonna eventually do. I'm gonna do a review of that eventually because I love that. I love that dang movie.
Oh God, that is so good. I don't blame you.
But here's the other thing. In the far background is another old school movie prop. And it's the time machine from the movie, The Time Machine. But here's the kicker. I don't know if you ever noticed this or not, because there's a guy sitting in it and the dial is actually spinning behind him.
No, I didn't. Oh God,
you never caught that?
Yeah, now I got to rewatch it after all that. You're giving me some revelations I didn't even know about. Okay. Oh my God, dude, there was really a guy sitting in the time machine with the dial going.
But geek. Here's the kicker. When you first see Randall talking to his wife, it's from his end of the phone conversation, and then it cuts over to her. But when it cuts back to him, the machine is gone, and there's some smoke or mist and everything in the German saying people are looking around going, what the heck happened?
Okay.
I am not joking. You
are giving me some revelations. You are giving me some serious revelations I'm going to have to look into. I'm literally going to download this and take notes. Because my God, that is just.
Well, here's the thing. I think both Forbidden Planet and Time Machine are both Warner Brothers films. Warner Brothers was the studio that produced Gremlins. So it will not to mention, I don't know if you Chuck Jones, obviously the animator, worked on Looney Tunes, which was also was a Warner Brothers property.
If I don't know who Chuck Jones is, I have no business talking in geek.
Well, you put it in the comments and everything. You said, I didn't know the Chuck Jones, but not
I didn't know. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I missed the sorry. I typed that wrong. I should have put more context there.
Okay.
I knew who Chuck Jones was from Looney Tunes. I didn't know he voiced in Gremlins. That's what I
No, he
meant.
didn't
I
voice.
should have.
No, a geek.
Oh
He
no, he showed
didn't
up.
do a
I'm
voice.
sorry,
He
you
appeared.
said he showed up.
Yeah, he was in when it's right after Billy's first confrontation with Mrs. Deagle at the bank, and they're singing Dory's Bar, and Billy's done that drawing as Mrs. Deagle was a dragon, and Chuck Jones says the old bat never looked better, and Billy actually says thank you. He
Yeah,
says
like I
thank you,
said, I knew who Chuck
Mr.
Jones
Jones.
was, but I
No,
miswrote
it's all
that.
right. I'm not worried about that.
I know Chuck Jones had thousands of voices. It was nice enough to give Bugs Bunny one of them.
Chuck Jones didn't do voice work. He was an animator. You think of Mel Blanc. Mel Blanc was the guy that did all the voices for the Looney Tunes.
I'm sorry. I'm a little tired here. I got that mixed up. I sometimes get Chuck Jones and Mel Blanc's mixed up. I don't know why, but both are
because
iconic.
They work together so much. I mean,
yes.
If it weren't for them, we wouldn't have had Looney Tunes like ever.
Yeah, you're right. Mel Blanc did the voices. Chuck Jones was mostly the animator. That's why I was getting it a little confused. You are 100% right there.
I'm not worried about right or wrong. But
but thank you for reminding me. It's been a while since I thought about those.
You're welcome. But this movie it really is hard to kind of categorize what this is in terms of genre. I mean, you could say it is a creature feature because it is, the central conflict is about a creature. But, it's...
Did we even have that concept back then?
Of what? Creature features? Well, yeah, creature features have been around forever.
Oh, that's right. My Universal stuff. But I never referred to them in that way.
Well, that's why I put it on the thumbnail, a Christmas creature feature, because it's a Christmas movie, but it's also a creature feature.
It's also a family movie.
It is, yeah. This movie is so warm and so endearing, and it's, Rant, the father, he is a bit of a bungle, but he's a good-natured, he's a good-hearted kind of he's a mess, but he's a good-natured mess. He's not trying to drag his family down. He's trying to do the best he can to provide for his family, and that's respectable. Not to mention, he wants to forget, as he says in the opening narration, he's like, I'm trying to find a present for my kid for Christmas. And he says, I got a story for you, and nobody's gonna be able to top it. I mean, nobody. And Hoyt Axton's delivery and everything, like I said before, the way he speaks and the timbre of his speech pattern is so distinctive, and I absolutely
everybody has a story, but nobody has a story like this.
Like one. Nobody. You got it.
Yeah.
But this also the grandfather and everything, that's all Mr. Keeley's character. There's another point in this story. What happens when humanity sometimes gets involved in things they don't fully understand. And with the Mogwai. Okay. Let's go over the rules. Do you remember the rules?
Don't expose them to light. Don't put them in water, and don't feed them after midnight.
But what's the second condition of the first rule? Do you remember?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That's as far as I got right now.
Sunlight will kill them. And that comes into play.
Oh, yes. Don't put him in light. He hates light, especially sunlight. It will kill him.
Kill him.
You're right. Yeah. You're right. Thank you for reminding me.
It's okay. And, of course, what happens? All three rules get broken.
Billy did not do that intentionally.
No, the set he did. Neither one was necessarily his fault. Anything in terms of the water or the food. The food he got suckered and everything because the evil gremlins or the evil mogwai chewed the wire on his alarm clock.
Well, remember how
Now,
Billy said it seems like Stripe is their leader, and they were so much
mhm,
different than Gizmo. Because Gizmo,
yep,
remember, they ate, and then he's like, you remember, he looks at the clock. He's like, I still got time. And he feeds the gremlin, what are going to become our gremlins. And, he tries to give Gizmo something. Gizmo just goes,
well,
and
but here's the
and when
kicker.
he wakes up and he's like, "What happened?" He's like, "Did you feed him after midnight?" And he's like, "No, I." And then he looks at the clock. He's like,
Clock,
"No,
it's the
I made
exact same
sure."
time.
And it was like, just mind blowing. It's like he's like, "What's going on?"
Well, here's the other kicker too. If you remember, Geek, um, when Billy calls the the teacher at the school and it's late at night, or did he call? No, he didn't call him. They just cut to a scene of the teacher at the school and it's late at
Hmm.
night, and you look at the clock behind the teacher. It says like 2:30 in the morning, and you're like, "Oh crap!" Billy
I
just fed him after.
You're blowing
Next
my
time you
mind
watch
with the
it,
details. Yeah. I'm gonna be.
it's
Well, this
because
is
I've watched this movie so many times. I mean, it's insane how many times I've watched this movie. But
But that's the
you
great
know,
thing
in the
about
three,
movies we love. We start looking for those attention. Once we love a movie, we start looking for those
mhm,
attention to detail.
just
And
for the little
yeah,
things,
those
yeah.
little subtle. I think they eventually came up with the term Easter eggs and stuff. And you're like, you're just
Yeah,
hitting points I never would have. I never even thought about.
it's just what a movie geek does. I'm a movie geek.
I know. Trust me, I do the same
30,
thing.
30 years running. 30 years running. But and it's well, I've been kind of going off. I've been going off or not going off, but I can be kind of talking for a little bit. Geek, what are some of your thoughts on Gremlins?
When I first saw it on VHS, it was one of those experiences where my grandmother and I were watching it, and it was my grandmother's suggestion to watch it. And I watched it, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I love the main actor, one
Zach
the old guy,
Galligan.
uh, narration
Oh,
starting and then it ending,
oh,
and
mhm.
what he was doing because and why he was doing it because he wanted something unique. He wanted to give his son a good, unique present. And I respected that because my family, uh, I grew up in a family that was, I was very blessed to be around people from the silent generation, the greatest generation, and boomers.
Mhm.
And I was raised, that's when my Gen X work values and family values go. And it's like, it's about family. It's about that. I mean, he was just trying to find a gift,
Mhm.
any gift that was unique. He wanted something to surprise his kid with because I think he really felt that like he was letting the family down. Now you had the family and now you take that in and you have the family and they're kind of like they're trying to be supportive of him doing these inventions, but you see throughout the movie they're kind of condescending and making jokes about his stuff. And that would have if that had been made now, he would have basically come across as a loser. But he wasn't a loser. He was a man
No.
trying to do the best he could for his family the way he could.
Yes.
That's what I saw in him. And that's after all my years of, living. When I was a kid, I didn't really quite grasp it, but I understood it. This is like somebody said, I think once they said Gremlins was like, yeah, that dad was a loser. I'm like, are you out of your damn mind? That man did this for his son. It's like, well, it didn't work out. I'm like, yeah, welcome to life. Not everything works out for us, but he was working hard. I mean, this guy was traveling. This guy is going out. I mean, we're talking the 80s. You couldn't when like for example, my stepfather was a carpet installer. I was not allowed to answer the phone if it rang because it might have been a business call because this was long before, cell phones. And so this, I felt he was always I never felt like he wasn't trying everything he could to provide for his family. And even now, I still see it's like he just was trying to provide for his family. Unfortunately, sometimes when we try to provide for our family and make our kids happy, it backfires.
Yeah, and in this particular instance, not only did it backfire for the family, it backfired for the whole dang town. And
Yeah, but it wouldn't have happened if it
you know
wasn't. It wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for the stupid kid.
yeah, for Pete. And fun fact about Pete, guess who plays Pete? Corey Feldman.
Mm,
Yep. Yep.
I think I
Pete.
forgot about that.
Yeah, it's okay. It happens. Well, the thing for me with this film, like I said, this I have.
Oh no, not Corey Feldman. Sorry, I was just thinking of it. Not Corey Feldman who dropped the water on. I'm talking about the kid back at the store.
Oh, the grandson, right?
Yeah, if it wasn't for that little shit, none of that would have happened because the owner
Yeah,
was like, Mogwai,
that's true
not
too.
for sale.
For sale, not
Corey
at any
Feldman's
price.
character,
And here's
that was accidental.
yeah, that's true. Well, and here's the real kicker because when grandfather shows up at their house after everything's gone to hell, and he drops the money on the couch, and he's like, "I believe there was a box," and I have to say the ending, the scene at the end where the grandfather, he's like, this is what happens when you all mistreat nature's gifts. And I'm kind of
The
thinking to
the
myself, yeah.
the most beautiful part of the movie, I thought,
Mhm.
was when you're talking about, and then Gizmo says, Billy, go home now. And it was just so touching.
It is. And the one thing I will say after grandfather sees the connection between Gizmo and Billy, he's like, right now you are not ready, but when you are, Mogwai will be waiting. And with
Yes, that was. I I think
and
he saw potential in Billy
Billy,
that
yeah,
he would be the one. And if you look at the movie, damn it, I'm sorry, I'm bad at that. But when Billy, what we saw through Billy's journey through this, he's like,
mhm,
"You're not ready now." Basically saying you're a bit young and experienced, but when you are, Mogwai will be ready. Meaning, he believed he had the potential
mhm.
to take care of the Mogwai.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we see, and I might do that. I might do the sequel down the road or anything because I will say it, the sequel is good. And anything. Not great, but good. It's a fun movie.
It's a kids movie.
Yeah. But
I mean, it is a
with the
kids
first
movie.
one,
I mean,
yeah, it is.
it's a kids movie. I mean, the first one was kind of more horrific. This was more of a horror kids comedy. The second one.
Well, here's the thing. I was 7-ish when this came out. And I watched it. Granted, I fell asleep during part of it, but I watched it and I turned out okay. Now, I want to talk about some favorite scenes, and I have to say one of my favorites is when the mom goes on the hunt, when she goes gremlin killing. Mother Peltzer is a badass.
Hey, you don't fuck with Mama Bear.
No, you do not screw with Mama Bear. Never, ever. And she takes out what?
1984. No wonder you said you saw it at 6 years old in the theater?
7, I think. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No wonder I saw it on VHS. It came out in 1984.
But, here's the thing. Within the span of like 2 or 3 minutes, she takes out the blender, the butcher knife, and the microwave. She takes out 3 gremlins all by herself, and then Billy gets another one with the sword that kept falling off the wall.
Oh no, the blender scene and the microwave scene were my favorite. She was a boss.
Yes, she was. And she was sneaky. She was crafty. She pushes the one into the blender and just hits that button, goes, and it just starts spinning. You see that gremlin's ass and everything spinning around in the air, and you can't help but laugh. And then she just goes slasher, killer. She goes, Mrs. Voorhees from Friday the 13th. She just goes Mrs. Voorhees and everything on that one gremlin. And she's like, Rick, Rick, Rick. And then she uses
it. I get what you're saying there. Oh my God. I'm sorry. That is just excellent. That is just an excellent analogy, I think.
Yes. And then she uses, I think it's a can of Pam, and she sprays it in the other gremlin's face, and then she shoves it into the microwave and hits it and cooks gremlin bits. Microwavable gremlin bits.
Oh God. Ambassador, you are killing me right now.
Well,
that's why I'm laughing so hard. I'm genuinely enjoying that. I'm like, oh my God.
One of my favorite moments is when Barney jumps out of the from behind the counter at the bank and attacks Mrs. Deagle, and she drops the head of her. Your mongrel beast of a dog smashed my Bavarian made snowman. And I'm like, I would have done? Yeah, and?
God, that woman was woke before woke was a thing.
No. That was the great-great-grandmother of all Karens.
Yeah,
she was the great-grandmother Karen of Karens.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, here's the...
I can definitely agree with you on that one.
I mean, a more contemptible, vile, evil little woman if I have never seen in my life.
Well, I've been talking for a while with, my wife and I talking, we're on various social media platforms, and it seems like certain people, no matter how good they got it in life, they are just miserable, and they are looking for something to be angry about and project their anger, and they want other people to be miserable. And that is what that woman was. She wanted everybody to realize, she's like, I want your dog. I remember being a kid watching that. I'm like, you out your goddamn mind?
You know what I would have said to her? You want my dog? You gotta come through me first, Grandma. And I guarantee you, you will break more than a hip if you come my dog. Not only that, if she had said, I will take your dog and put it in the dryer on high heat, I would have been like, oh, hell no. I had jumped over that counter, taken off my badge, taken off my tie, and I'd be like, I am not afraid to slap an old biddy. You don't threaten the dog. You do not threaten the family pet. I would have been in her face so hard and so fast. I would have taken the remains of her Bavarian made snowman, smashed it over her head, and said, "Hey, boss, I quit," because I knew I would have been getting fired anyway, and I would not have cared. I would have gotten another job.
She was the biggest. She was one of the biggest. The problem is, she was so. Actually, this is one of the reasons I've really enjoyed another movie, but that's off topic. She had money, she had power, she had influence, and she liked it. She abused it because no matter how she had all that, she was just miserable bitch.
Well, to quote one of my favorite movies, the early 2000s, and you will probably get this, and yes, I am going to alter this to match the name. Well, Miss Eagle is a bitch. She's a big bad bitch. She's the biggest bitch in the whole wide world. She's a stupid bitch. There is a bitch. She's a bitch to all the boys and girls. On Monday, she's a bitch. On Tuesday, she's a bitch. On Wednesday through Friday, she's a bitch. On Saturday, she's just to be different. The super King Kong, Maya, biatch. To all the children around the world, it goes a little bit something like this. Well, have you met Mrs. Eagle? She's a big fat bitch. She's the biggest bitch in the whole world. She's a bit hair. She's a bitch. She's a bitch. And Mrs. Deagle is a bitch.
Yes,
Mrs. Deagle is a bitch, and she's just a dirty bitch.
That sums up Mrs. Deagle perfectly. That really does. Like I said, like we said, we felt bad for the people who, were dying or got attacked. I felt bad for Fetterman, but her, it was like, if anybody
the Gremlins win.
To die in that movie, if anybody deserved to die in that movie, that was her.
Well, okay. Here's a crazy thing, and okay, we're going to go down a rabbit hole for just a few minutes here. Okay. When Randall is talking to, the dad is talking to Billy, and he says that he's going to take Barney to his grandmother's house, to Billy's grandmother's house, and then have him back for by Christmas Eve. What were the odds that, well, and not only this, Billy's dad says Mrs. Deagle will never get her hands on Barney. And the day he comes back to town with Barney, Mrs. Deagle is dead. Crazy rabbit hole. Crazy rabbit hole. What if Randall somehow knew what would happen if the Mogwai mutated? This was his plan to get rid of Mrs. Deagle in the first place. Because think about it. It could never be traced back to him. It could never be linked to him in any conceivable way. But what if this was one elaborate plan to get rid of Mrs. Deagle?
Whoa, you went dark.
Well, let's face it.
I'm gonna be 100% honest. That was so dark. I'm gonna have to really think about that. I cannot give you.
Think about what Rand says to Billy and everything when they're at the house. after the
I
first
get it, but
incident.
where you went there, I'm like, I'm gonna really, I don't want to I don't like knee jerking, but that,
No, that's
ooh,
okay.
that I gotta
What
think
if
about it and get back to
what
you
if
on,
this
bud.
whole now, okay, granted, the town gets kind of wrecked and several people die or get injured, and yes, that stinks,
Collateral
including
damage.
collateral damage, yes. But what
Well,
if it
if
was
that was
just
his
a
intention, that was collateral damage. Okay, that got dark quick. I gotta think about it. I gotta think about Randall's
but
intentions
what is a
because
better way to get rid of what is a better way to get rid of the one person in that town that everybody hates, but that nobody could actually touch without getting in some sort of trouble? Because, okay, do you remember in the aftermath of the attack after they've destroyed all the gremlins and you got the news reporter there and he's listing off some of the people some of the more prominent people that have died, and he mentions that Mrs. Deagle's husband was a crook? He was like
yes.
a gangster or something?
What
What?
city were they in? Do you remember? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank.
It's called Kingston Falls, but I don't think they ever say the state.
Because the way you're describing it sounds like a Chicago area. Yeah, there's a reason we say in
It's
it.
a I would say it reminds me a little bit of, okay, the layout of the town reminds me just a little bit of Hill Valley, but Midwestern.
Yeah,
Kingston Falls sounds like
it's
a
just the way
Midwest.
the way you're describing this. The way you're describing this is like, when we say from Illinois, uh, things were so much more civilized when the mob ruled it. And it's kind of like, almost that same thing. Somebody gets a little too big for their britches, like Mrs. Deagle did. And, everybody's afraid to take that person down or knock them down a notch.
Mm-hmm.
And, the gremlins gave her comeuppance because she thought she had all the power. And then all of a sudden she sees this. She's like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready. It's like, oh, baby, your time's up.
Yep, you're done, Mrs. Deagle. You're done, Miss. You're done, sweetheart. But hey,
Yeah, and
well,
I guarantee you, I'm almost certain out of everybody who, died during that movie, I don't think anybody shed a tear for Deagle. I mean, I wouldn't have.
now the only thing I will comment on in terms of her scene where she dies, you can kind of sort of tell that it was a dummy in the chair, but at the same time, it's forgivable because they're not going to actually launch someone at that speed out of a window because somebody could have gotten hurt. But you can still notice that the arms are flapping a little unnaturally as the air is launched out the window. And
Well, when
even
Hans
though
drops out, of Nakatomi, we know that that's kind of a dummy thing because it doesn't go quite the way, but it's excusable because the story is good. We can forgive those minor things because especially we're talking the 1980s and the budgets they had back then.
Well,
So,
this movie
yes,
had a
I
pretty
agree.
give me a minute because I want to look up the budget for this because I honestly don't know. Hang on.
I might be able to find it. I already had Gremlins up.
It
was an $11 million movie in 1984. Okay, so actually, that's a very respectable budget.
Yeah. And how much did it make?
212.9. 212.9 I mean, you got to remember we weren't doing international, distribution back then. So, this movie was a complete success.
Oh, wow. Well, not to mention it got. Okay.
Oh yeah,
It
it is the
got.
movie.
Let's see.
It is the movie that
Well, no. Here's the
I
thing.
was pretty. Oh, sorry. It is the movie that caused
Well, here's
the
the thing.
PG-13 rating created.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. The Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. It got Best Horror Film, Best Supporting Actress, Polly Holliday's Mrs. Deagle, Best Director, Joe Dante, Best Music, Jerry Goldsmith, Best Special Effects, Chris Wallace, Best Supporting Actor, Dick Miller, Best Performance by a Younger Actor, Corey Feldman, Best Writing, Christopher Columbus, and Best Makeup, Greg LaCava.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same thing you are, bud. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I didn't realize. No, but that's okay. I didn't realize how many awards it got.
Well,
I
it
didn't
was a
realize how
top.
many people got awarded for their contribution to this.
Well, and they should have, because it, you know, this could be very easily dismissed as just a cheesy, goofy 80s creature feature. But you know what? There is something really endearing about it. And
It was different. It was unique.
It was. Yeah.
I got to check something real quick. I want to see what came out first. I want to see if this or Critters came out first. Because I don't.
I'm pretty sure this came out first.
Yes, I swear Critters was it came out in 1986. Critters filmed in. I swear to God that was inspired by. I'm not gonna say a ripoff, but I swear to God I think that was inspired by
not
Gremlins.
quite. It might have had some inspiration, sure, or anything, but
some inspiration.
Yeah. And, I will say this, the one scene where you see after Stripe jumps into the YMCA pool and that whole scene and everything where he's holding his nose as he drops down to the bottom of the pool, I couldn't help but chuckle. I could.
Yeah,
I could.
I was waiting for you to get to that. I was waiting for you to get the Stripe of that. Because like he's holding his nose, and then all of a sudden you see the freaking water basically looking like it's boiling. Oh my God. I actually freaked out.
And that creepy green light coming out of the water.
What are they doing? And then we get to one of my favorite scenes.
Mm-hmm. What's that?
What are they doing? They're watching Snow White and they love it.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, you got to talk. You got to talk about that scene.
One of the funniest dang scenes I have ever watched in a film. A bunch of evil, slimy, creepy monsters sitting in a dark movie theater watching something as warm and touching and endearing as Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Not to mention during one of the most iconic scenes of that whole film, when the dwarves are leaving the mine and they're singing Hi Ho.
That scene is so, in my opinion, that is the best scene of the movie.
And they're actually singing along.
Yep.
Oh.
I ho, I ho, I ho, I ho, I ho. It's like, what are they doing? They're watching Snow White.
Okay, even better scene when the gremlins are in Dory's bar and Kate is having to wait on all of them. And you've got the one gremlin. You've got the one gremlin staying behind the bar wearing the trench coat, and it flashes him. And I'm looking like, you don't have anything to flash. You don't. You do not have anything to flash.
Oh, God.
Okay, another good one. The gremlin that's wearing the fedora and is kind of playing like a Humphrey Bogart type of gremlin. You know which one I'm
Yes.
talking about?
Yeah.
You can hear the Malo from Casablanca of all the gin joints and all the bars and all the world, and she had to walk into mine.
I always hate when people get the one reference wrong about play it again, Sam. And I'm like, no, that's not how it's said.
Yeah.
It's play it again, Sam. But yeah, and then of course the most iconic line, in my opinion, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. But yeah, I can see where you're going with the fedora and the Humphrey Bogart thing because
and not to mention,
the flashing was just so hilarious. I was so young, I didn't even understand what a flasher was.
Even better, another funny little sequence when they're all sitting around the table playing poker, and you've got the one gremlin dressed up as a woman.
Oh, and when he puts the card, or when one puts cards down, he's like, boom! And he kills them, and he kills the other guy. It's like, oh my God. You know what? I
even better. One more that's even better than that. When the one gremlin is singing at the bar and the other gremlin has the fuzzy little puppet and everything, is like boobity boobity bobbity, and the one gremlin's like just looks at him and then just goes bam, knocks him out cold.
You know what? I think this movie should, in my opinion, it's a Christmas movie. I 100% stand by that. But it is really a black comedy horror movie.
It kind of is. It really kind of is. You're not wrong.
Because you have so much darkness going on, so much horror going, but there's so much humor in this. It's like, we're sitting here laughing our asses off at all these scenes we're talking about. Like for example, after the Snow White thing, the freaking gremlins were attacking because the movie got messed up, and then they noticed they were in the background. And I equated it as like, oh man, they are pissed you took Snow White out. But there was so much humor, so much just beauty in it. And the effects, the practical effects,
I'm glad. Thank you for coming back to that, because I want to talk about the puppetry, particularly for Gizmo. Gizmo, he just steals your heart. He's like, I'm just a cute little mogwai. I won't hurt you. I'll be your friend. However, my offspring will eat your face and eat your soul. And honestly, you feel so bad for Gizmo after the other ones are spawned, after Pete knocks a glass of water off of his back or onto him and everything on his back. And you hear that high-pitched
character.
Huh?
I'm sorry. I thought I remembered that was Corey Feldman's character who spilled the water.
Yeah, it was.
Oh, yeah, okay.
No, it was Pete. It was Pete. It was Corey Feldman's character who did it.
Yeah, it wasn't Billy. Okay.
No, it wasn't Billy. No, but that high-pitched squeal that Gizmo was making as the other gremlins were popping out of him, and you felt so bad for him.
Yes.
You really did. You felt so bad for him because it actually sounded like it was painful, and then you see the look on his face, and it's almost like he knows what's going to happen now.
It was almost like despair. If I could equate an emotion to it, in a word, seeing those other Mogwai come out that were going to become the Gremlins, despair is the word I would use. And if I was going to use a second word, scared shitless.
Well, especially after the gremlins mutate and they go into those green, the leathery pots. Okay, another great little old movie reference when the pods or when the cocoons are starting to
I know where you're
open
going
up,
here.
and they use that scene from Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and it's just perfect, absolutely perfect callback to an old school movie, everything, an old great black and white classic, and you've got Jux running parallel to it, the gremlins emerging, and they're no longer the hairy creatures that they were. Now they're these scaly, green, kind of slimy, disgusting, vicious-looking monsters, and they start to torment. They pick
They
on poor little
started
Gizmo.
tormenting. Well, they
They
tormented him. They were tormenting Gizmo even before they turned.
Yeah, that's true. They did. Well, not
I'm
only that,
sorry. Let,
and
let
they
me rephrase that. Let me use a more appropriate. They were abusing Gizmo before that, and I remember, he was like, they don't seem like Gizmo. The Stripe seems to be their leader, and you're seeing how aggressive they are.
Mhm.
And even before they became, the green stuff, they were really abusive.
Well,
So I
especially the poor old Barney, because when
well,
they
uh, let me put it. Let me put it. You went down one rabbit hole. How about this?
sure
Maybe that even if Gizmo had eaten after midnight, even if he turned into a gremlin, he would not have become like them because they were already aggressive and violent even before they became the green stuff.
the green the mutated form of the Mogwai.
The
Yeah.
gremlins. Yeah, the gremlins. They went from Mogwai to gremlins. But I don't see, based on the way they sound, based on the way they acted, I just don't see Gizmo, even if he transitioned that way, I don't see him going that route.
Maybe there might be some validity to your idea and everything. I'm not saying there isn't, but uh, hmm, what would a mutated form of Gizmo behave like? That's a darn good question.
Because he was always very protective, soft nature. And then you had, like Stripe. I mean, remember Stripe, when Corey Feldman's character Pete was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 notes, and then he tried to touch one and he snapped at him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you look at those Mogwai, and Billy's like, they are very different from Gizmo. It
Yeah,
seems like Stripe is their leader,
yeah.
and
You mentioned
that
that a couple times.
if we're gonna go down rabbit holes, I just, even if he mutated after midnight, I just can't see Gizmo mutating into an evil character because those Mogwai were already that way.
Vicious. They were already abusive. They were already very malevolent. And everything. And
So
very
if we're
mischievous.
gonna go down rabbit holes, I got to bring that one up.
Well, that's a good one. But and not only that, what they did to poor Barney. I mean, poor old
Yeah.
Barney. He get tangled up and everything in the Christmas lights on the front porch of their house. And okay, we've got to talk about Mr. Futterman for a few minutes at least, especially.
Okay. I gotta go to the bathroom real quick, but I'll hear you.
Okay,
So just
that's fine. Go ahead, bud. Um, Mr. Futterman, he's a character. He's a character and a half and everything, no doubt. And it's the opening of the movie. Billy's trying to get to work, and Futterman pulls up in his Kentucky Harvester and everything, his bulldozer with the backhoe on the back of it. And he's talking about the gremlins and talking about how the people from overseas, how they stuck the gremlins in the vehicles and whatnot, and about he obviously Mr. Fireman's old enough. He fought World War II, so he was like they would stick the gremlins in our planes, our tanks, and our guns and everything to make everything go kaboom. And I'm like, okay, this guy's got a little bit of a conspiracy theory, but this was it was a conspiracy theory at the time. And when his bulldozer breaks through the house, and he's like, "There's gremlins in the cab," and I think Geek mentioned this a few minutes ago. And it wouldn't be until years and years and years later in Gremlins 2 when Fireman would realize, I'm not crazy. They really are real. I'm not crazy. And we're like, well, yeah, you weren't.
Oh, sorry.
Ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead, bud.
Well, you see, what I liked about Fetterman after I've had a long time to think about that particular character, he's an old curmudgeon. But he's a curmudgeon I'm used to seeing. He's also a man who had some PTSD, and he is also a man who, as I always say, just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean I'm wrong. And he was actually right. But one of the things I think that made him kind of become a more curmudgeon, and maybe even a little bitter, because I never got that he was a bad man. I thought he was a good husband, good, family provider, but nobody believed him.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody believed the damn thing he said. They all thought he was just out of his mind.
And it turned out he wasn't.
Like that. Yeah.
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, obviously, as you mentioned, Mrs. Fireman has a lot of influence and a lot of power in Kingston Falls. And Fireman mentions the fact that she's shut down the plant. And you're like, geez, lady, just when people are needing their jobs so they can buy Christmas for their friends and their family, you take away all their jobs. What a complete and total bitch.
I can relate to that very much now because I grew up in a steel mill. I grew up in a place where the predominant was the steel mill. And the steel mill years ago shut down. And then I don't know how I happened to. Hold on a second.
It's just for me.
Okay. I happened to come across an article about my hometown, which is not very often. And it was like the steel mill is firing back up one of the two burners. And I responded back to the person that said, "Don't fuck with me." And when I checked the article and found out it was genuine, I started crying. I had to tell my boss, I gotta go outside, because that was so important to the economy of my city. And when I read the article, and it also said the prior workers get all first priority, I was like, oh, thank God. But when that mill shut down, a lot of mom and pop stores and things like that, they shut down because they didn't have the revenue coming in. So, it was I don't know another way to say it better than a tit for tat, but without the mill, a lot of places shut down. I saw a lot of places go away. And when I found out it finally came back, and every time I would go, I'd be like, what the hell happened to this? What the hell happened to this? Oh, they shut down. They closed down. They didn't get the revenue. And it was after the mill closed. And then when they fired the mill back up, at least one part of it just, I was so happy. I was I mean, this is really personal to me. The fact that not only did the mill at least fire at one plant, but they gave the workers, which I hope they would, that priority to come back. But
Yeah,
the
and
damage toll it took was so hard. So I totally get that reference.
yeah. Well, and
Sorry to get a little emotional there.
no, well, hey, geek. I mean, like I said, this movie hits very, like I've said earlier on in the stream. This movie hits
Well, think of
differently
a
for me.
where my wife was from, Anderson, Indiana, because
Hmm.
she's a native Hoosier, and then
Hmm.
her dad worked at GM and he retired from it, and then the plant's gone,
Yeah,
and what it's done to that. And my wife, when she goes back, sometimes is just like, we
it's
went back.
hard.
She's like, yeah, it is hard when you see when you see that, and you're like, wow, you
Well, and
like,
well, if you think about it, a town like Kingston Falls, a very small, rural town out in the middle, not so much out in the middle of nowhere, but it's not some big major metropolis. I mean, it's at most maybe got a few hundred people living there and everything. And this is probably the biggest thing that's ever happened in the town, like period. One Christmas Eve, the town gets attacked by monsters, and you think about how that will reverberate throughout the years for the families that will continue to live in Kingston Falls. I mean, even Billy references Kingston Falls in Gremlins 2 because he's moved to, I think it's New York or whatever. And it's, I think we all kind of wished when we were growing up that we had grown up in a town like Kingston Falls. And
I did. Mine was just a
I,
state. Well, my hometown, one of the things I always remember, and this is just a simple thing, I would go over to my friend's house on Delmar Road on the weekend,
Mhm.
and it'd be dark out, and we'd be outside sneaking a cigarette,
Mhm.
and we'd watch the steel mill fires go up. We'd watch this
Mhm.
that, and we'd watch it go up, and it was like, oh my god, we were always in awe of that.
Mhm.
And when I thought about the fact that people were going to see that, I was just like, oh my god, because that was that to me is like not hearing a train go by.
Well, and not only that, to kind of tie this back into the movie, to make Mrs. Deagle even more reprehensible, even more mean spirited, what's the one place in the town that she wants to close down? Dory's Bar. And Billy and Kate are talking about it, and they're like, she's trying to get people to sign the petition to save the town or anything, or save the town, save the bar, because that's where everybody's mom and dad met, and that's where everybody's mom and dad proposed or anything or got engaged at.
And she hated the fact that that was a place of happiness. Sorry, I
Yes.
didn't interrupt you,
No,
but
you're
yes,
geek. You're fine. You're fine. Yeah. And it's just, you have to admit, Chris Columbus knows how to write a mean old lady because if you think about it really hard. There's another mean old lady that appears in another movie that he didn't write, but that he directed, and that was Mrs. Doubtfire. And that was the busybody the old lady, the neighbor, and everything of the Hilliards. Um, the family from Mrs. Doubtfire and everything that
yeah, I'm sorry, but the
uh
person I hated the most was the CPS worker. That's a completely different story, and I don't want to get into that.
Fair enough. That's fine. We don't have to. But
But I get your reference.
Yeah. But Chris Columbus has a real talent for writing some just really reprehensible people.
Well, if you're going to make a character unlikable, you got to make them unlikable for a reason. And you have to make them, you don't just, you can't just make a character unlikable to be unlikable. You have to give a reason why people don't like them.
Yeah. And, well, of all the characters in this movie, Mrs. Deagle sticks out, but I have to admit, Billy and Kate stick out too. Yeah, I do want to talk about Billy and Kate just a little bit because theirs is really the atypical, like, boy has a crush on, long time.
80s crushes.
Yes, yeah. And, it's Phoebe Cates. She's a cutie and everything. And Zach Galligan, everything is Billy. He's not a bad looking guy, although he's got the kind of the perm haircut going. And I'm thinking, oh dear Lord, why?
Because he has no confidence in himself.
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that whole situation with Gizmo and the other Mogwai or the Gremlins is it makes him grow up, it makes him change, it makes him have a little more confidence, a little more chutzpah and everything, a little more spine and everything. Not that he's cowardly or anything. He's just
he's unsure of himself. Alpha. He went from a beta to an alpha.
Pretty much. Yeah.
This situation, in today's thing, he'd still be, a beta. But he stood up when it mattered.
Well, yes, but he.
And as far as his, his crush, you could tell she liked him, but it was
she was waiting. She was waiting for him to make the first move.
There you go. Enough said.
Well, and the other interesting thing with Billy and Kate is they have an interesting conversation, and it's kind of heartbreaking. It's Kate's monologue about why she doesn't celebrate Christmas, or her family doesn't celebrate Christmas. And I can kind of, to a certain degree, I can understand her reasoning. I can even say I sympathize, because
most of the characters in this movie were, I think, this is the biggest problem I think we have with a lot of modern cinema. A lot of characters we can't relate to. Yes, we can suspense of disbelief, but we can't relate to these characters. We want to be entertained, but we want them to be somewhat relatable. And there were so many characters. And then when she, when Kate explains why they don't celebrate Christmas and what happened to her dad, it's like, okay, I get it. I even got that as a child.
I did too, and especially,
because it's traumatizing. That's why they didn't celebrate it. Trauma takes a toll on you.
Well, as I've posted on my different social media accounts, this time of year is always hard for me because it was mid-December of '84 when Dad passed away, and I said something to Madam Ambassador the other night. You would think after 30 some odd years it would be easier not having Dad around. But There are days. I have my good days. I have my bad days, just like everybody else does. But when the bad days hit, it hits a
They hit
little bit.
hard.
They hit a bit harder.
No, they
But,
don't just hit a little bit harder. They hit hard as hell.
yeah. But
Um,
here is the one thing. I have to ask myself this question. If he was still alive, or if he had the means to communicate with me from the beyond, I know in my mind what he would say. He would say, "Son, don't grieve for me, because I am with our Lord and I am with God. Like, and someday we will see each other again. So if you must grieve, grieve. But remember all the good we had together, even though it was only for a little while." And the other thing, and I don't mind sharing this, Dad loved this time of year. He loved Christmas. And the one thing he loved most about Christmas is if he had his own Santa Claus suit. And for as long as he was physically able, for his coworkers, for the church, for our church, for hospitals, and so on, he would put on his Santa Claus suit and he would go visit. And that was actually how him and Mother Ambassador met. Was at a Christmas party where he was playing Santa. And in the years since his
that's
passing,
beautiful. That is beautiful to hear.
yeah, and in the years since his passing, I asked Mom, what's the one thing you miss of if there was one thing you miss about Dad, what's the one thing? What would be that one thing? And she always says how he could put a smile on just about anybody's face.
Now you know damn well I don't have a good relationship with my father, but
Yeah, I know.
I'm but that being said, the way I was raised, I've been talking to my mother, and I talk, and the simple thing is, I just wish I knew if he was alive or not right now, because
Yeah,
I truly don't know, and that is killing me.
I can imagine. And to
I
bring
don't
this
I
back,
don't mean that. I mean that metaphorically, obviously.
yeah, obviously,
Yeah, but
and to bring this back,
not knowing, that not knowing is just like, and it makes me so angry that it's like, I'm your only son. I'm your only child. Why can't why can't you take the and I think I know why, because he got his phone stolen, and I don't think he actually knew my phone number or what he's doing. But I've called. Okay, I'm gonna shut up now.
no, it's geek. You say however much you want to say, and the rest you leave alone. To bring this back to the movie, Kate tells about how her father was in a Santa Claus suit, and he's coming down. He tries to come down the chimney. Unfortunately, he breaks his neck, and her mother are just an absolute wreck. And ever since then, they don't celebrate Christmas. And you know what? I can honestly say I do understand, and I would not treat her like a leper or something. That there was something wrong with her, as she described to Billy. She's like, tell somebody they don't celebrate X, Y, or Z holiday and nobody cares, but say you don't celebrate Christmas, and oh my gosh, you're a pariah, you're this terrible, horrible person. And I'm thinking, no, you obviously have a legitimate reason for not celebrating Christmas. And
I saw a movie once. I don't remember what it was, but this
Mhm.
particular woman was with another man, and they were climbing up a mountain, and
Mhm.
she didn't like going up mountains anymore
Mhm.
because what happened was they got to the peak, and when they were coming back down, she had her first drink of alcohol. He brought a bottle of wine, and they went back down. Unfortunately, he ended up dying, and she
Mhm.
took that very traumatizing, obviously. And the person said, the other person, the male said, "What do you think Dad remembered the most?" Because she was trying to get him down. What do you think he remembered the most? Him in pain, or having wine with you at 20,000 feet, or something like. But
Oh, I know what movie. I know what movie you're talking about, and it's. Oh man, I know the movie you're talking about. I can't. Oh, this
but
is
I
gonna
mean,
drive me nuts.
what I mean is, it comes back to that same kind of preference. They are remembering it for the horror and the trauma that it caused, and yes, it did. But they're forgetting what he was doing and what he was going to do and what he wanted to remember that day. If that makes a damn bit of sense.
It does. Wasn't that?
I don't remember the name of the movie. All I'm saying is
I
that when you're
should.
all I'm saying is
You know
that
what? Hang on.
oh,
Do you remember what movie this quote is from? What do you think your father remembers? It's from Alien versus Predator. It's from Alien versus Predator. It's what Wayland says to
oh
was
yes,
Shauna Lynch's character.
yes,
It's from
yes,
It's
you're
from
right.
AVP. Never mind, we
You're
figured it
right.
out.
It was
Took a minute.
AVP. You are completely, yeah. That was what
Do it later.
I
It'll be
was
okay.
misreferencing where it was. I was thinking of two different movies, but that quote really stuck out to me
Yeah, it's from AVP, the first one, Alien versus Predator.
because, oh god, AVP too sucked. But when he's when Waylon's like, she's like, she's still climbing and everything and doing that, but you know she shocks him, and he says, "What do you think you remember the most?" And I was just like, "Oh my god!" And and
Mhm.
I really thought that was a great line from
It is. Yeah.
and Lance Hendricks is, uh, in my opinion, a very underrated actor because he is just fantastic.
Mhm. Yes, I will. I wholeheartedly agree with you. So,
It's getting close to 11,
geek.
buddy. Think we
Well,
talked
we're
way
gonna
too.
actually wrap up, but I want to give you. Yeah, we've been talking about this for almost 2 hours, so we're gonna
Oh,
do
this was
final thoughts
great.
on this, and then we will. I'm gonna let you have your final thoughts on the film, and then I'll do mine, and then we'll call it a night. So, geek, my friend, the floor is yours.
I think everything I need to say about that movie I've already said. I have nothing to add.
Okay. Well, Gremlins is a classic for a reason. And yes, Gremlins is a Christmas movie. A somewhat unorthodox Christmas movie, but still a Christmas movie nonetheless. And if you have not watched it in a while, regardless if it's Christmas time or not, I encourage you, go check out this film if you haven't ever, or if you haven't in a while, because it is very much worth your time to do so. But this is, of course, just the beginning of this year's Christmas festivities here on the Ambassadorial Wing. I will be back over the next several days leading up to Christmas with further reviews. I will also be, to give you all a heads up, I will be doing a review for Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, starring Jim Carrey, and we will be asking the question: was it necessary, and is it a worthy successor to the original animated special? Okay. Also be doing a review for another 80s retro classic, simply called A Christmas Story. And me and Mam Ambassador will be doing a double feature review of a pair of ultra retro films from the silver screen of yesteryear. We will be reviewing a pair of Irving Berlin's very best, Holiday Inn and White Christmas. So keep your eyes and ears open on my social media, whether it's Twitter or Instagram, because I will be posting updates on when those reviews will be going live. And of course, if you come across this stream or anything, you enjoyed it, you enjoyed the discussion me and Geek gave y'all, make sure to leave your comments down below about anything we may have brought up during the course of this stream. But with that all being said, you'll have a wonderful night. And of course, Merry Christmas from everybody here at the Ambassadorial Wing.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, my friend.
Praise be to Christ.
Amen. We will see you next time. Stay ambassadorial. And these are the ambassadors. Signing off.